You are now listening to this yet to be named podcast / artist talk series. This is only my first episode, and I did a really poor job introducing my guest. The guest I have on this episode is Maliha Nazerali. She's a speech and language therapist from London, and fun fact, she speaks 8 languages, including BSL. She's a creative writer at heart and a photographer by definition. She will tell you that she isn't a photographer, but she's taken some really beautiful photographs over the years, and that can only be described as being a photographer. Thank you for listening to this podcast in these early stages as I work out all the kinks and I develop as a host. I really hope you enjoy this episode. Oh yeah, my name is Robbie. I'm a photographer.
Well, I guess I wanted to start off with my first topic I wrote down, which was not being as good as you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And as an artist, how there's always like this sort of gap between where you are and where you want to be.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever experienced that, writing, always being sort of self-conscious about your skill level.
With writing, I think it's a little bit easier than it is with photography, because you're never going to write exactly the same way as someone else. Whereas with photography, I think there's probably skills that you want to have as well as someone who you admire. But I really struggle with sharing my writing. Like, in general, I write a lot, but why do I struggle sharing it?
Yeah.
Because it's just, I think I write as I think, and then I never think my thoughts are good enough to share until I have something to show for it. So like with my diary entries that often end up into being like stories or poems, those diary entries are literally me thinking out loud. And I think even some of the writing that I do, it's still me thinking out loud. I don't think there's many that I've got to a point where I'm like, no, this is my statement.
But do you feel like you need a definitive statement, or you need like a definitive, or like this is finished, complete piece of work?
I don't think it's so much it has to be complete. I feel like it has to be representative enough. So say, for example, like if I was writing, so recently, like I was writing for that Moroccan piece.
Yeah.
I had my diary entry, which was exactly what I experienced while I was in Morocco with the thoughts that I had. But to submit it, I really struggled because I wasn't writing for me anymore. I was writing for someone else to read. And I think that it's not that it has to be a complete sort of idea. It has, maybe it is. I'm in my head, I'm sort of saying that I need it to be what I want another person to enjoy or appreciate, rather than just what I'm saying. It's changing what I've said into a version that someone will want to read.
So what did you change?
So when I rewrote it, I changed the formatting. Like I changed the structure of what went before, what went after. Because when I wrote it as I felt it. But when I want someone to read it, I obviously heard things, and I wrote them as a compiled, sort of complete piece of writing. But when someone's reading it, I want them to go through the steps that I went through to get to that. So I changed the structure so that there was a bit more of, here is the scene, this is what I'm building up, this is what came before, which is why, this piece of writing is coming about, and then this is what I saw. Whereas when it was just my diary entry, it was just, this is what happened, this is what I felt, blah, 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 because the prerequisites didn't need to be there, because it was for me. I already knew what my prerequisites were, because they were my ideas. So I had to make it a lot clearer.
Do you think that there's a time and a place for sort of putting out a journal entry, or does it need context?
I've been thinking about that actually, and I'm sure there is, but I don't have confidence in me putting out a diary entry and someone getting it. Because just leaving it out there without any contextual information, you're relying on someone else to either care enough to dig deeper, or to be interested enough to keep following, like to keep up with what you're saying. Because I think sometimes writing by itself without any of that contextual information is just writing that someone will read and go, oh, that's nice, oh, that's what she saw. So like the diary entry, for example, was about a day that I went to the port, and someone could read it and go, oh, that's nice, that's like, you know, descriptive writing, that sounds like a nice place, the people sound good, the vibe seems cool. But if you don't get the context, or if I don't give you the context, then you don't see how that weaves into me visiting a range of like places, trying to find something that I feel familiar with. That's the whole point of why I went to a North African country, like a Islamic country, a marketplace, an artistic sort of vibe. It's because I was looking for something that I could look at or be a part of and go, yeah, this is I get this. But the writing by itself without that context is just a description of a place that I went to.
Does it change if you add images? Because you did add images for the
I did, yeah.
The article.
I think the images that I added, so for me the writing was the main piece. I added the images because I felt like that they were more accessible. Like someone would see the images and go, oh, I'm going to read what she's written.
Okay.
I think that because you will look at something and either you will relate to it, you'll have had experience of it, or you'll find it curious. But with writing, it's the information isn't there as quick. Like you look at an image and you have information there, but with writing you have to actually read and process what you're writing or what you're reading. And that takes a little bit more effort from a person, and you kind of, I don't know, I added the pictures because they added to what I was writing, and they were things that I saw and things that were important to me. But I also added them because I knew someone would see them and go, oh, I recognize that. Oh, that's quite interesting. And then we'll go back to what I've written.
So there were more illustrations than like a central.
Yeah, for the purpose of that piece. Yeah, for the purpose of that piece, it was, illustration, and not the focus point.
Are you upset that they didn't add the picture of the kitten?
Yeah, I'm really upset.
That was essential.
For me, that really was like, so I don't know how many of my images I've shown you, probably all of them. But a lot of the places that I go to, so when I went to Lebanon recently, when I went to, even when I just go down the street, like cats, kittens, it's just, they're exciting to me. They're really, it's something that I think now, like having 5 cats of my own as well is part of who I am. Like a lot of people go, oh yeah, the cat, you have loads of cats, oh the cat girl, oh the cat lady, like even the people that I work with, and I don't hate that. So when I take pictures, they're the kinds of pictures that I spend a bit more time on, or I'll actually go, no, this little kitten deserves a bit more like time, and I'll sit there, I'll get close to the floor, I'll really try and get like the personality that I'm experiencing of this little bundle of fur. And so when I submitted it for that writing, actually when I went into that marketplace and I saw the kitten on the sofa, and I went into the desert to go go-karting, I went quad biking, and there was a kitten in the sand. Like for me, those are the bits where I go, okay, I'm gonna be okay. Like I see a kitten, I'm like, okay, this is cool, I know what like it's just comforting, I think. And I guess magazines make decisions on what they think their readers will find special or interesting or will want to come back for. And I think kittens, for that particular piece, did not define Morocco. Maybe there's just so many that it wasn't what they were looking.
Not, it didn't define it for you, but it defined the atmosphere for you, didn't it?
Yeah. It was part of, like, you know, when people are like, oh, you know, if you had to describe this in 3 words, what would you use? Or like, if you had to describe this place that you went to in 3 words, what would you use? I'm using words, like, even if it's photographs. For that particular experience that I was writing about, and that particular day that I was trying to capture in both photographs and writing, yeah, that cat was part of it. Like,
what about?
And I think
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Well, what I had to do so when I submitted for that writing piece, I submitted 7 photographs. 7, initially 5, and then I added another 2. So yeah, 7 photographs, and there was 2 that I really wanted them to put in. One of them did go in. That was the painting of the man in traditional dress that was at the front of the art shop, and the kitten. And so the art one went in, and interestingly, they also chose a photograph that directly related to what I was writing, even though it wasn't the best photograph, I think. The one with the palm trees and the lights, because I was talking about the palm trees and the pathway, and I think they thought that linked quite well to the writing. And they put
what do you
goats.
think your decision with I was going to ask about, like, I sometimes say that if I can't necessarily photograph something, I could write it, or if I can't write it, I can photograph it. And is it redundant to say something and then show a photograph?
I don't think it has the same effect as if you complemented it with something, because so this photograph with the palm trees and the lights, I was kind of like, I don't know why they chose it as a photograph. It's okay, it's a photograph of Morocco, but with the writing, I wouldn't have chosen to put that if I was only going to pick 3, because it's exactly what I've written about. I would have preferred something that complemented what I was writing, so it gave you a bigger picture. So I think there might be a place where you can have an image and a writing piece that are pretty much the same thing. Do you remember when we did that ages ago with the, I want to call it Aladdin's cave shop, but it wasn't. It was like an odd bits and bobs shop, like the antique store.
Yeah.
Where I wrote about it, and then did you photograph it before or after? I can't remember.
I photographed it while we were there, and you photographed it, and you wrote about it.
Wrote about it after.
After, yeah.
Yeah, like for that, I've seen those pieces together, I think on a website somewhere, or I've seen those pieces together, and those go well together because it's not exactly the same thing. It's 2 different perspectives in 2 different mediums sharing an experience. But in this case, I wrote the piece and I took the picture, and so you're only getting my perspective twice. And I think that makes a massive difference. I think you can have loads of people take pictures of the exact same thing, and you would get something from it because you're taking their story as well as their image, or their perspective as well as their writing. But for this one, all you're getting is more of me, like more of what I'm trying to tell you, rather than something more, you know.
So do you think
more about
it's an interest? I think now, speaking about it, it's more interesting to read about the cat and not see the cat.
Yeah,
because palm trees are the same, where like you're going to see a palm tree, it's a palm tree, but cats have different personalities. I think a photograph might anchor down the meaning of the paragraph.
Yeah, yeah, as in, like, so the photograph would have been too one-dimensional.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Like, if I had written about it, then I would have made it a lot more explicit about, you know, what had drawn me to this particular mischievous kitten. But you would think with a photograph, someone would look into it a little bit more and also try and get that. I don't know. It's easier to get the personality across in a piece of writing because I can use the words I want to say to make you think exactly what I want you to think, or for you to imagine exactly what I want you to imagine. And I guess that's more difficult to do if it was just the picture that had been presented.
Yeah, like, you know how when I'm working on like a photo essay or whatever, and I ask you about text, and the only thing that always comes up is like, is the text ruining the images, or like giving it context, does it ruin the image? Like, I think it's the reverse, where the image is ruining the sentence. Like, you can just say mischievous kitten and you imagine something, but you can't imagine anything other. Like, if you show a picture of the cat, it's kind of resolved and it's done, and you've seen a cat.
But I think that's, you're right. But I think that's the difference between you being a photographer and me being a writer, is that I can express what I'm trying to say much better in my writing, and I can show you what's in my head. Whereas, and then if I'm adding photographs to it, I have to really think about, like you said, whether it adds or takes away from what I'm trying to share. Whereas with your photographs, you capture whole stories or whole narratives in your images. And with that, I'm always telling you, don't write too much, because you'll give away the story. Like, it's like when you read the blurb or you see a trailer and all of it's in it.
Yeah.
There's no enjoyment left in trying to figure it out. That's what I feel about sometimes writing, that like that kind of writing can take away from the quality of a photograph, where you give away all of it, and like there's no fun in it. You just see something and you're done with it. Like, it doesn't make you think, it doesn't make you question, it doesn't make you want to tell someone else about it. So yeah.
I was going to ask if you felt nervous, not about submitting, but handing over the, I guess, like handing over the keys to your writing. Like, you're giving them kind of free rein on how they present your work. Like, they're not going to edit the text itself, but they had a choice in what images to use. Did you feel a little shaky about that?
Yeah, actually, I really did. And so at the beginning, when I was submitting this particular piece, I was nervous about how I was going to present my writing, how I was going to put it together just for the submission part of it. But then once I did it and I was kind of like, oh yeah, it's done, then I really started to worry, because I was like, what are they going to see when they read it? Or what are they going to see in my pictures or my photographs? And how is that going to fit in to what they're trying to share to their readers? And actually, is it going to fit? I think I remember writing in the email, like, I don't expect you to use all of these photographs. Don't worry if you don't use my writing. And I'm like, why am I selling myself short already in my submission email? But that's when I started to really worry. Like, I got to that point and I was like, what if what I'm trying to, or what I'm giving them isn't what they want? And then they start to, like, I don't know. I think someone picking and choosing is almost worse than someone going, no, I don't want it at all. Because I feel like that has the power to change what I'm trying to share, and what you sort of, what the idea of me that you get from it. So my writing was exactly the same as I sent it in. They added a little blurb bit which I had emailed them, and they just put it into their own words. I don't hate that. That was fine. But with the photographs, like, I remember telling you, I was like, oh, these aren't the pictures I would have chosen, or these are like something along the lines of, they picked 3, which was great. Like, I thought they would maybe only pick 1, but they didn't ask me, you know, which one would you choose if you only had 1, or which one has the most meaning to you. So in that way, it wasn't then a worry. I just started, when you start to second guess yourself and you're like, actually, were these the best images to submit? Was there something else I could have done? Was there something else I could have sent in that would have made them go, actually, no, we want to have 4 images because this one's really important? Like, I then began to think, actually, should I have changed what I sent in so that they would want more of it?
But would you trust, like, first of all, did you trust them, and did you trust their choices? Well, you're talking about before how you were like, they're going to know what their viewers want to see. They're going to know what's going to, I don't know, generate interest. Did you trust them on that?
I didn't okay, trust is a really big word. I didn't trust as such that they would make the best choice for me, but I trusted that they would make the best choice
for them.
As in, yeah, that sounds really horrible. But what I mean is that I trusted that they knew what their readers would enjoy.
Mm.
And that what would go up on their website would be something that would get clicks, that people would click on. Like I've had a few messages on my Instagram actually since, but I didn't ever at any point think, oh, they're gonna be thinking about me. I didn't think they're going to be thinking about what I was trying to share or what I had experienced. They were just looking for content for their website, and I trusted that they would make their own decisions about it.
Yeah, I'm sure they were interested about your point of view and all of that. I think because we are kind of desensitized to media outlets to just sort of print anything that will get views. I think these guys come off as quite
genuine.
Yeah.
I think it helps they're a really, really small, what would the word be? Business? Retailer? Magazine? They're
Publisher.
A really small publisher. Yeah, publisher's the word. So I'm pretty sure that the person that was messaging me was the same person who made the decisions to put, or not to put things up. So it was nice to have that kind of contact and discussion.
And in that way, as well.
Yeah, like, and I think those few messages that were exchanged between us before I even made the submission helped build that trust. At the beginning, I was like, I've seen this thing, I'm going to give it a go. But by the time it came to it, I did feel like, okay, it's going to this particular person. Like, I trust their judgment. And that's all just because we had a brief conversation beforehand. I'm pretty sure of it.
I was saying to you at the time that whenever I submit to anything, no matter how big or how small the company, it's hard to have a conversation with them. And even if it's a small company or a small collective, they're gonna try and, I don't know, it seems like they are gonna put up a front that they are too busy to reply. Even if you have like, I don't know, they might have like 100 followers, but they're still gonna pretend like they're bigger than they are. And you don't get any conversations with them like, what are you looking for? Or like, there's no open discussion there. It's submit, we'll give you a yes or a no. And sometimes they don't give you a no, they just don't reply.
Like, you just don't hear back from them.
No, never. And I think, I don't know, does that sound...
Do you but do you send emails out? Like, so if you were going to submit something, do you get in touch beforehand to just be like, hey, I want to find out a bit more, or I'm thinking of submitting?
Yeah.
And do you ever get responses to that?
I rarely get replies. No, the people who do reply are the ones that I are more likely to submit to.
Yeah.
But even then, they will either send you a link to a website, and that doesn't answer your question, or they will give you like a really dry response. And you know, when I got my portrait shown in the Bernie Grant Art Center.
Yeah.
Speaking with them was quite weird, because they would either take ages to reply, and when they do reply, they sounded like they were coming from HR. And when I finally gave them the print and all that,
like the physical print.
Yeah, the physical print. They were like a lot smaller than they presented themselves as, if that makes sense.
Yeah. They
had like a presence online that they were a big company that were doing loads of things, but in reality they were probably smaller than the publishers that you were speaking to. And
oh wow.
Yeah, so I was like thinking, why can't you have a conversation with your artist and get to know them and connect?
You know, it's so this experience that I had with these publishers was great. Like, they were really responsive, really friendly, really kind. Like, even when I submitted my piece, they were like, your piece was really well received. Like, I've never heard such like polite acceptance of a submission before, and it made me feel really good. And actually, I now follow them on Instagram. I wasn't going to, but I now do. But there's artists that I've got in touch with, who, like, so I like to email painters and be like, I really like your work, what other stuff are you working on, just to make connections, just to email them and be like, hey, what's going on, I really appreciate your work. I get nothing out of it, they probably get very little out of it, because I don't always have the money to then go on and buy what they're painting. But I like to make those conversations happen, because it then goes from being an unknown buyer or whatever and a producer to actually like, oh, hey, your name is Chris, my name's Maliha, like, you do this and I like it. And I think that makes a difference, because it's not so impersonal. So then you can be like, look, you didn't like this piece, but I'm doing this, this, and this. Do you want to have a look at it? And you're opening up what was just a one contact, like, I like this one painting, to now here there's a range of stuff, you might like some of the other stuff. And one of the companies, was there a company, it was more like another docu-series that I submitted some of my Iran photographs to. They were really difficult for me to work with, actually, because they weren't friendly. Like, I couldn't tell you if I spoke to the same person twice. I don't know how big their exhibition ever ended up being. I was never invited to it. I was never sort of contacted again once I sent my photographs over. And it was very much, this is a business, you will contribute to the business. We will have like an exchange, so we'll pay you for your photograph, and that's it. There wasn't any personality to it. There was no sort of humanness to it.
Isn't it? Like,
it makes me not want to go back, though. Like, I never want to share my work with them again. I never want anything to do with them. It takes away from what could be a really good and lasting relationship, or even just, even just as a relationship in terms of a viewer to something. When you don't have a personable response, you're missing a trick, I feel. Like, if you are an artist, or you are someone who like puts things together for magazines or exhibitions or art, magazines, like I was thinking of articles for that. If you don't make the effort of just checking in with the person you're taking work from, then you're not doing your job, because you're not just, when you share someone's work, you're not just sharing that one piece, you're sharing them as an artist, is what I feel. Like, why else put the effort into getting a piece if you're not gonna fully support it? I don't know. Like, is that a really naive way of thinking? Like,
no, I don't think so. To go back to you messaging artists, it's fulfilling for an artist to have an engagement with someone who likes their work. Like me, if I take a photograph and no one sees it, it's not worth anything, or like it gets a couple likes on Instagram, it's very impersonal. But to share it with other creative people and get feedback, or say, oh, this is nice, I like it, or I want to print, it's a lot more fulfilling to get those kind of interactions. And with, publications being quite impersonal, you kind of get trained to, I don't know, get your money, get your thing published, get what you can from it, and move on, rather than
I think it's the difference between doing like just being a business and actually enjoying what you're a part of, whether you're the person submitting or the person who's taking stuff in. If it's just a job to you, then you're just going to do your job. You're not getting paid to do anything more than that. But I always sometimes, well, not always, sometimes, I often feel bad when I like message artists that I really, really do admire and really, really like their work, but there is no way I can afford it, like to own it. I always feel bad that I message, I'm like, hey, I like your stuff, and then I'm like, and they're like, do you want to buy stuff? Or like, you know, like they don't say it that explicitly,
but they do put it in there, like, oh, hey, thank you, but
here's my website,
page,
these are the new things up. Exactly. And that's no less than I'd expect. Like, I'd expect you to push your work. It's your work, it's going to be your livelihood. But I always feel like me just messaging to say, hey, I really like it, can be really, I don't know, so like, say for example, someone messages you and they say they really like your work, and you feel like your work has reached someone and it's achieved some sort of goal that you had for this particular piece. But if that's all you're getting from it, do you ever feel like, cool, but that's all it is, like it's just a like there's nothing more has come from it? Or do you feel like at this point you're only trying to create an audience? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. But I think my motivation for making something creative is to show it to someone and for them to engage with it. Like if you write a poem, you want someone to read it and engage with it. You don't want them to go, oh, that's nice, it rhymes. And then move on. Or like if you get, I don't know, I think social media and getting likes doesn't translate to engagement, because you can get a like based off of, this is my friend, he does very good work, I'm going to support him. That's one like. And it's different if you really passionately like that person's artwork or their writing.
I guess it's kind of like a graded system. So like you could just like something which takes a millisecond to do, and you could almost do it as an instinct without really thinking, versus actually sitting down and writing them a message to say, this piece of work that you did or this photograph, I really liked it because that's an extra sort of, that they've put some effort in there. And and I think that's something that I find makes a difference to me. So if I've written a piece or a poem and I've shared it on social media, which I probably don't do as much now, I'll share it with like a few select people. But when I used to put it up on social media and I got a like on it, I'd be like, okay, cool. Like, I know effort had to go in to read it, obviously, and decide whether you like it or not. But often those likes would be from family members or friends who just saw my name, saw I posted something and liked it. I'm pretty sure I could ask some of them and they wouldn't be able to give me constructive feedback on what they read, whether it was, I didn't like it because this and this, or I didn't understand it, or like, I don't even know how many of them
care
read it to read it.
I've had experiences of having like a random person like your Instagram posts, or like I don't know, someone like a friend of a friend will like your posts every now and then, and you don't see them enough to actually get feedback from them. And I've had the experience where I've gone to meet up with them, or like they're in the same party as me, and they come up to me and say, oh, I really like your Instagram page, and it stops being just a like, and it's actually a person who's actually appreciating your work. And they're actually receiving and looking at it for longer than, just scrolling past it and double tapping. And that's hard to differentiate when you're always on your phone. And I'll tell you another story, which is quite jarring. It was the first time during my graduate show that some random stranger came up to me and asked me about my work. And they were genuinely interested in it. And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to react. So I kind of froze and I was like, huh? Like, you're not just going to go, yeah, good stuff, and walk on. They were like, oh, so why did you choose these people to photograph? And how did you get this lighting? And this is so beautiful. And I was like, oh, excuse me? what do I say back? Do I need to give them my business card now? What happens? What happens next?
Yeah, what you expected to do.
Yeah, that was weird. I thought, yeah, but I've been having better experiences on Instagram when I treat people like I want to be treated.
Yeah.
Like if I like someone's work, I like it a lot, I'll just message them and say, your work is amazing. I'm really in love with this story that you've got on your website, and I'm just engaging it how I would want to be engaged. If that makes
Do you
sense.
think that's, yeah, it does, and that's like, that's ultimately what people say anyway, don't they? Like, treat other people like you want to be treated. It goes for this as well. But it just made me think, like your little story, is that, do you find, and I know I find this, it's so much easier to appreciate someone or their work when you don't have to look at them. Like, well, you know, when you're just, I can be really sincere in my email or comment, and actually you'd probably find me more sincere in my writing than I would face to face, because there's that awkwardness of, I really like your work, I don't really know you, I don't know how to tell you this apart from, hey, I like that, and you're going to be like, okay. Like, I find that as much as social media can be a front and people can just click to like without thinking about it, in other ways it's a really nice way for people to, without too much embarrassment, actually say how they feel about something. And whether that is to say, I really liked this, I didn't like this bit at all because I didn't understand it, or because you could have, you know, done this instead, or I would have done this instead. People are a lot more willing to tell you exactly what they think when they're not standing in front of you to say it. And I know there are like confident people out there who will just say it to you, but I know for me, I'll be able to give constructive feedback and constructive criticism when I don't have to look at someone.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you're in someone's vicinity, you feel like you have to say, oh, I really, really like that. And then you sort of tag on a bit of a but if there is anything. But when it's just online, especially if it's people you don't know or don't know very well, it's a lot easier to be completely honest about what your opinion is, whether that is, you know, that you like it or don't like some aspect of it.
Yeah. What do you think about social media etiquette? Of like, have you ever gotten random like likes or comments on your posts that are just, oh, great work, and then like a star emoji, and then you go to their profile and it's got nothing to do with you, they're selling kitchenware, or and it's like, it's either a bot or they're just doing it for the attention, because knowing that they'll get a click through to their page?
I mean, so it's frustrating because sometimes you're judging the success of a particular post on the comments that you get, and then when you get comments like that, you're like, what am I even doing this for? I know there was a piece of writing that I had done. Social media was really like new at that time, actually. Maybe it's different now because there's a lot more bots, but I remember just getting like, it wasn't even a comment, it was just like a like followed by a direct message just saying, oh, that was a really cool poem, I really liked it. And so when I started talking to them, they weren't actually interested in what I was writing. They started the conversation to get me to have a conversation so that they could tell me about what they were doing, which is fair enough. Like, you know, people trying to like make connections or trying to find or navigate that social media space. I remember then that like it almost felt like when a stranger comes up to you and is just like, hey, look at my things, this is really cool, right? Do you like it? That was the vibe that I got. And it's a lot more subtle now with social media now, in that same way that you're talking about, where someone will comment on your work and then you'll get to their profile and you're like, actually, did you just do that so that I would click on your profile? And they don't really care about what you're doing. I don't know how much people respect social media as a place where someone's trying to do business or trying to share what their work is, because primarily people, I mean, it's shifting now, but I think primarily people still look at social media as just a social sharing space, rather than like a focused area where you're trying to actually share a particular idea or concept or piece of work and get feedback on it. I think you have to make it very clear if that's the kind of profile you have. Like if someone has a specific photography page, or someone has a specific, it's different for writers. I've seen poets have just one Instagram page or one Twitter page, and it's got everything in there, like their musings, their poetry, and like, hey, I had, noodles for dinner. Whereas I think with artists, photographers, painters, sculptors, even that kind of stuff, it's easier to have a protected place that is, hey, you got to respect this, like I'm running a business here, or I'm trying to do something here. And for to have bots on that kind of page, I find really frustrating. Or to see just empty comments or clickbaity type stuff. I don't like it. But there's a lot of it. I think everyone finds it on their page at some point.
Yeah. Do you think that you can be genuine and run a business at the same time? Like, do you think you need to be looking at numbers and only doing things that will increase, like, I don't know, views and stuff like that? Because I sometimes see, like, I've worked for places that will be all about numbers. Like, if our numbers are down, you're not doing anything right. And I see that reflected in social media, where piggybacking off the bot comment is like, those only I can't differentiate between, is this a ploy for views, or are they just being kind? Like, I understand if you run like a kitchenware Instagram and you really like someone's work and you go, this is a really nice shot, versus,
you're well within your rights to do that, right?
Yeah, but like, where's I don't know, it seems weird. Do you ever worry? I think
I'm always quite naive. I'm really, really naive about stuff like that. I would always assume that someone genuinely likes it, or is genuinely interested. But there have been occasions where I do that. I put effort into then messaging them and giving information, and then it doesn't go anywhere.
With the example of someone who only complimented you so they can talk about themselves.
Yeah.
Do you think that's still genuine? Because there's been plenty of times where someone has gone, oh my God, I love your portraits. I do portraits too.
Yeah.
That they actually do engage with your work and they want to share the way that you share.
That's harder to tell apart. So, like, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe they did really like my piece, but they just wanted to share theirs too. But when someone does that to you in person, you can see it in their body language, in how they use their words. But online, you can't tell. Like, yeah, they could have, but it just seems so abrupt that I was like, I don't really know if you were interested in my work at any point. But no, it's a way of bringing that conversation up, isn't it? To say, hey, I like your stuff, and you can genuinely mean it, but it's a nice way for you to then go, oh, hey, have you seen what I've done? I don't think social media lends itself very well to that, because I think that is the social side of creating something. You have to put in the people time. You have to build that conversation up before you then start to sell something. I feel like, right at the beginning when we were talking about the conversations that were had before I submitted that piece, and it just helped build that relationship. I think that's still important. Or even on social media, you can't just go straight in. I feel like it's important to try and engage, yeah, and genuinely do it, not just, like, someone could message me, be like, hey, how's it going? I really like your page. And we could both know that all they want is a service from me, or me to access a service from them. But the fact that they put that time in, you've engaged me as a potential, which wouldn't happen otherwise. Yeah, I don't know, because when you said etiquette, I was like, I don't know, is there social media etiquette? Like, there's all kinds of people out there. How can you police something like that? But I think there are some things that I personally would either have me continue with your page, your service, whatever, or it would make me go, I'm not wasting my time with this. And I think that is harsh, actually, because they could have been genuine, just didn't know how to market themselves, and I've just written them off. But you come through so much, don't you, on social media? Like, you're just scrolling, or you get messages, or you see stuff on your homepage, and you can't put the same level of effort into all of them.
Yeah, it's true.
So you pick and choose.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sad.
You know what I just remembered? You know, you were saying about the person in real life who came up to you and said that they liked your work, and you're kind of like, okay, what do I do now? There was a time that I had written a little play.
Yeah.
And like, you know, you share it with other people. Did I tell you the story?
No, you haven't.
Right. So I wrote a play like in high school, end of high school, and it got shown at a theatre in London, and it was really cool. The only people who went to see it were other schools, other children. And I remember that my English teacher had been like, this is a really good play. And I was like, oh, thanks. Yeah, you know, whatever. And then the people who won from each school, actors, acted out your play. So you got to watch your play happen. And an Australian woman came up to me after, because once the play was done, then the writers went down and everyone saw who you were and they applauded and it was all cool and whatever. And after the play was done, this Australian woman came up to us in this massive, like, I just remember it was red velvet, like, not red velvet, would it have been like red carpets, lots of like gold. It was really like a fancy place, like a proper theatre, not like one of those small ones. And she came up to me and she was like, did you write that play? It was called Fidelity. Not a topic a teenager should have been writing about. But it was like, there was this really cool like vase in it, and there was a whole like backstory and really intricate like family dynamics. I'm really proud of that play. But she came up to me and she was like, did you write that play? I want to buy it. And I was like, what? And she's like, I really want to buy it so that, you know, we can produce it and have people. I don't know what kind of lady she was. I never really asked, because one of the school teachers promptly came in and was like, she wrote it while she was at our school, so it's actually our property and you can't actually buy it from her.
No.
Yeah. But I remember coming home and telling my family, I was like, hey, this lady wanted to buy my play. And they were like, what? And I was like, I know. And I didn't know what to say, because who gives you that kind of massive compliment, or like in real life? Like, you never get it. Like, someone's like, oh, I like your stuff, and you're like, cool. But she was like, I like your stuff, I want to buy it. And I just remember being so mind blown that someone could appreciate something enough to say, I want to own it. I like something that you did so much that I want it, not just I want to experience it, but I want to have it. And I remember I was on such a high for so long after that, but I remember really thinking after that about because obviously, like, high school, I was young, I'd never really before thought about selling any of my stuff, but I remember after that really going, actually, maybe there's something that can be done from this. Maybe, you know, there's something in what I write that's good enough that other people want to go, I not only like it, but I want to own it. Like, that was a big sort of like eureka moment almost, where I was like, oh wow, like, people actually, you know, throw their money at stuff.
How did you feel when someone stepped in and said, actually, it's mine?
Oh, I was annoyed. And that's happened before. So not before that, it's happened since. I was just really annoyed because not that you forget, actually, it is yours. Like, you create something, it's your property, right? Or so you assume. But I was
Did you sign
really
a contract
annoyed.
saying that it was theirs?
What, the play?
Yeah.
No, I was a kid in a school. Like, I wrote a play.
Why was it theirs? Why wasn't it your? I don't know.
Intellectual property. It was my physical property. It was mine. I don't know, but I was too young to even think that actually can I say no, it's mine? Like, can I stand up to an authority like my school and say no, it's mine, I'm gonna sell it anyway, or no, it's mine, I want to, like, even if I didn't sell it, like, I want to decide what happens with it. I don't know, like, I didn't know enough or have enough power in that situation to be like,
why did they
to this day I do not know why they didn't let me sell it.
Do you still have the play?
I don't think I do. I had it on an old laptop saved, and then I remember handwriting it out as well, because I was like, I'm gonna sign this and keep it, and I have no idea where it is. I can barely remember all the themes of it. I just remember how it made me feel writing it and having people stand up at the end and applaud, and I was like, oh, I read that. It was incredible. Like, it makes me want to, like, just thinking about it makes me want to write more. That kind of feedback where you get someone just appreciating it and not having to, like, people can just clap. They don't have to stand up and clap. That was good, and for me, that was, at that time, that was good enough. That's what I wanted more than anything. But as I've got a bit older, I feel a lot more possessive about things that I create. I don't even know if that's a good thing. Like, how can you share your art if you don't want to share it? But it's not that. So I know I've told you this one before, but the photographs from Iran that I took, and they were like, these are our photographs now, you can't use them, yeah. Again, that was a situation where I didn't know enough to say, right, can we talk about the details of it, or can we talk about what that means, how long for? Like, because social media is so accessible to everyone now, when you see someone going, hey, we're looking for photographs for our magazine or for an exhibition or for whatever, you're just like, oh, cool, this is an opportunity, let me share some of my work. And so I did, fully, like, naively excited, thinking this is cool. Like, you know, when you share a post online and someone shares it on their page and like, cool, I've shared my work. It's not that simple. And I think me not having knowledge in that area and just being like, yeah, cool, I'll share my work, I was in a situation where I now don't own some of my photos. Like, I mean, they're mine, but I don't own them. I can't use them anywhere else. I can't post them anywhere else. I can't formally share them anywhere for like a good number of years, I think it was, when I found out, like, when I got in touch with them again. But with that, I was speaking to 3 or 4 different people, had no idea who I was talking to. My pictures were gone before I even, like, fully understood what I was doing. And there's no one there to be like, hey, like, do you understand this is what you're, like, signing up for or agreeing to or whatever. I don't know. I feel like you'd probably know a lot more than that, because going to uni, they probably talk you through that stuff a little bit more, or what kind of real world implications there are of sharing your work with an organization or a publication but I sort of got taken a bit blindsided, and that was annoying. That's when I realized that actually, when there's work that you're proud of, you want to share it, yeah, but you want people to know it's yours. You still want to have a level of control over it. I think losing that control made me really, not worried, because it is just photographs, but like, just, I knew like my identity wasn't at risk or whatever, but you just like, this is my work, this represents a part of me that I wanted to share, and I have literally no control of how you're going to use it. Like, they could use it on a billboard as a promotion for something else, for, like, do you know what I mean? Like, I know they won't, but they could. And that, yeah, it made me realize that I like having control over what I put out, who I share it with, and what they do with it, and how long for. Like, even recently, when I recorded the calligraphy videos, or recorded some sign language videos, that kind of content, I was very specific with them that, yeah, you can use them and you can share them, but only for this length of time. And, you know, like, it's not in the wider scheme of things, it's not the most important thing, but to me it is really important now, and I had to learn that by making a lot of mistakes.
But then isn't there like an element of trust? Like the Morocco images, you kind of spoke to them and you gave them your images. I know that you didn't give them the copyright, but you still gave them your work. And I understand that there's a power dynamic because they have the platform to share your work with more people, and they can, in a sense, expand your viewership. But they still took the time to, you know, be casual and nice with you and speak to you and respond to your questions.
Yeah, definitely feel more comfortable with them because of those conversations that we had. It makes a massive difference. Like I'm not worried about those images or how they'll be presented, and that is a lot to do with having a positive experience really early on with them, where you want to feel confident that if you have questions about something, that it's going to be responded to, that you're going to have someone who is there who can give you information that you need. Trust is a massive thing when you're sharing work. Like, even if I'm sharing work with you, I know it's not going anywhere, but I have to trust you. I have to trust that whatever your reaction is to my work, you're going to give me an honest and constructive sort of feedback from it. Because whether it's writing or a photograph or whatever it is, whether it's something I've done formally or just something I've scribbled down, or you know, whatever it is, it's something of me that I'm sharing with you that you don't have the right to, like, it's not, someone can't just demand it from you. So you're making a decision to share something about the way that you think, about the way that you see the world, that isn't outwardly visible. Like, no one would know it unless I told them it or unless I shared it with them. It's something very, very personal. And like, even photographs that I know you take some photographs when you go like on a walk or things that you see, even photographs that you aren't necessarily thinking, oh yeah, this is part of a project that I'm going to put into a book and I'm going to share it with people. The photographs that you take say something about how you experience that particular moment, or what drew you to that particular composition. And when you share that with me, that's what I see. I'm not just seeing like, oh yeah, it's a tree. And I think you have to have trust to the people that you're sharing your work with. Otherwise you just leave yourself so vulnerable to more than anything, misinterpretation. I feel like that's what I feel really nervous about. I'm like, are they gonna understand what I'm trying to say? Are they gonna get it? Are they gonna get me? And I guess there's a lot of insecurity in that as well. So you want to have some level of trust before you throw yourself out there.
I'm going to ask a question that might take us in a different direction, but what is your motivation to creating? Like, what's your motivation for creating? Like, why did you first start writing?
I think for me, writing, it's always been about trying to process something. So the very first things I ever started writing were my diary entries, obviously. And they were always a way for me to process a feeling or something that happened, an event or a question. And the writing allowed me to play the other points of view out. So I could explore without having to share anything of myself with anyone just yet. And when I write like poems, when I write like written pieces or poetry, I'm trying to share my realizations. So I've explored everything, I've written it out, I've come up with these ideas, I've come up with this narrative, I've come up with this poem, I've come up with this piece of writing, and I want to share it because I want to share with you the conclusion that came at the end of it, the part of it that will change how I then go forward. That's what makes me want to share what I've written. So like, I don't know how clear that was, but if I was writing, I don't know, a story, I'll be writing that story and exploring different ideas, different points of view, my own questions, and then when I reach a point where I've come to not an answer, but I've come up with something that satisfies my initial question, or I've come up with an idea that satisfies the curiosity that I had when I started it, that's when that makes me want to share it. I want to share this whole little journey that I've been on to come up with this final piece of work. I think it's easier to say, if I say what doesn't like, I don't like sharing work that is personal. So my motivation doesn't come from wanting to share me. It comes from wanting to share new ideas, or not even new, but just explored ideas.
So do you feel like a completed piece of work that you say you've formally written is detached from your personal feelings? It comes from you, but it's something completely different. It's a new, let's say, a product, while a diary entry is, I guess, a tool or like a material.
I think my diary entries are always my starting points, because that's what I naturally go to. So that's where all my thoughts, ideas, questions, bullet points, doodles, all of that goes into. And that I would not share with anyone for money, but I don't mind giving versions of that, like even word for word. Like I could give you a section of my diary word for word as part of a bigger piece of writing that I did, because I think having a product is something that I have consciously been like, okay, this is being written for someone to read, for someone to get what I got, to get the perspective that I got from this process, or to get to see what I saw, kind of thing. But just the diary entry is what I saw. Like I can't, I'm not ready to share that, because it's like, it's something that you would do with like a best friend or a family member, where you would just say things as you feel them. But when you have like people you work with, for example, you'll have exactly what you want to say, but you'll embellish it and flesh it out with other words to make it sound a bit longer and a bit more polite and a bit more easier to digest. And I think that's sometimes what happens when I'm writing. I've got my core piece of writing, my ideas, my thoughts, my point of view, and then I soften the edges, add extra words, make it more interesting with, more, I don't know, what I think people might like. So more characters, more ideas, better scenery. Like I change things up to make it something that someone will want to pick up and read. Still has my authentic views, but it's not in its raw form.
Do you think it's important to share your work, your creativity, whether it's a poem, play, or even
as much as it's difficult for me to do, I think that's the most important part, is to share it. I think if sharing it didn't bring growth to my writing, or better ways of sharing, then I might be like, oh, I don't know. But there's value to sharing, and I think it's really important, because every time I've shared something that I've done, I've always produced something better after. And I really think that sharing process helps you grow from it, because the feedback you get from it, the things you experience while you're doing it, whether it might not directly affect my writing, it might affect how I decide to write, or how I decide to share, or how I decide to structure, or some of the sort of peripheral stuff. But I think sharing what you create is really important, not only because you grow from it, but also because what are you creating for, if not to share it? And I think it doesn't have to be sharing with a massive audience. You could decide to share it with a journal club, for example, 6 or 7 people. You could decide to share it with a select number of people. So say you have like a number of followers on a certain site, or a following on a certain thread or something like that.
I don't want to cut you off, but sharing your camera's cut off and I can't see you anymore.
Oh, give me one sec. It's because my battery is on 20%. Better?
Yeah.
Okay. Where was I?
Sharing with a platform.
Yeah, I said it was important.
Yeah.
The point I was trying to make is that I think sharing is definitely important, but the number of people you share it with is up to you and what you're comfortable with at that stage. So I know before I would just share it with a few select people, then I shared it as part of different stuff, but shared it as part of a competition online, shared it in front of a panel, shared it in a journal club, shared stuff on Facebook, which I don't know how many 100 followers, some of them I don't know. So I think sharing is important.
I was gonna say, like, do you remember the feeling when you read your first sort of, what is that first book that you read and you were like, oh, this is like what I want to do?
The Two Princesses of Bamar is a book that I first read. I don't even have it on my shelf. I think it's in my other shelf. As in, like, the first book that I read and I was like, I want to do something like it.
Yeah.
Was that your question, or did you have a different question?
That was my question. Is that
was the book that I said?
Yeah. So when you first read that and you had that feeling, do you ever create a piece looking to elicit that feeling in someone else?
I think what I want, when I read that book, it was a fantasy book, by the way, really, really cool. It's written for children, but I still read it today. What I felt when I read that was, I think about things like that sometimes. My imagination creates things like that sometimes. I've never thought to write it down and give it to someone else to share what's in my head. And that book was exactly that. Someone wrote down a narrative they created in their head and shared it with us, and I got to read it and I was like, I love it. But when I write things, what I want other people to get from it is I can do that too. It's just that feeling of, it's possible for me to share what's in my head. Someone will read it, someone will relate to parts of it. I don't think I ever really write to inspire other people. Yeah.
What goes through your head when you're writing for an audience rather than writing for yourself? What does your brain do to then go, okay, I have an audience that is going to read this. How am I going to present my words? What's that, like, sort of switch? Because there's a change in motivation there, right?
Yeah. So when I write for myself, it is purely just writing for myself to see things on a paper that I can then manipulate, move around, and structure. But when I write for, like, other people, when I'm writing a story or a poem, I'm writing to bring them some level of joy, some level of like either haha that's funny, or ooh that's deep, or I want an emotion from it. I want someone to feel something. It's difficult to like explain. I don't.
Do you ever imagine someone reading your work?
Yeah, sometimes like, say if I've written a piece, I'll imagine someone reading it and hopefully feeling what I want them to feel. I think it's always an emotion of some kind. I want them to.
Is that person a random person, or is it like a version of you?
It's almost often, I always say this, almost often, it's like poems. When I write poems, it's a younger me reading it. It's someone or a variation of younger me reading it. But when I write like prose or written pieces, it's a random stranger. And I think I'm a lot harsher on myself when I'm writing pieces like that. With poetry, I always go, it's just expressing yourself. Just do it. It's fine. But with written pieces like narratives, it's always a stranger that I imagine reading it, and they're always disapproving, and they're always like, you could do this better. What were you thinking with these like grammatical structures? And there's a lot more rules. And I think with those, I'm a lot more careful about the words that I choose, the themes that I write about, the structure that I order it in, the people I include in that narrative. It's almost like, it feels like work. You know, when you're given a brief and you're trying to fit it. Sometimes when I'm writing pieces that I know someone else is going to read, that I'm writing for the purpose of someone else reading, there's a lot more boxes that I'm sort of filling my bits into. Whereas when I just write and then I'm sharing it, that's a lot harder for me to do, but it's a lot more authentic to my personal writing.
Yeah, I get that.
There's so many, like, there's a range of things though, like, that you could write for. I don't know, like when you photograph, sometimes you're photographing just because something appeals to you. Sometimes you're photographing because something, you know, will appeal to someone else. And then other times you're photographing more formally to share an idea or to share an aspect of yourself. And I think it's the same with writing. Like when you're writing for different purposes, you open up different layers of yourself. Like you're not sharing so much of yourself every time. It varies.
Okay. You know, I think we've been recording for a while. I think we'll leave our other points that we didn't get to for another time.
Okay.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about this whole recording process?
It just felt like I was chatting a lot. It feels. No, I'm not exhausted. I think it's difficult not being able to see the person you're talking to. It's also quite difficult to, like, when you're given a platform where you can just chat, that's what you end up doing, like talking a lot, and it's not always it's cool. It's just not very structured, is it?
No.
It felt very yeah. It's nice to talk though. It's nice to be like, this is what I think, and this is why I think it, and this is, you know, why I do this. And yeah, no, I did enjoy it. It felt like a therapy session. But I think that's what they're supposed to feel like you're, you know, thinking through certain things and talking about the whys and hows. So yeah, it's fun.
Okay. I'm gonna stop recording and I'll message you in a bit.
I still can't see you, but okay.
We'll work on it.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.